Hello again. Here we are with Bear Grilled Skinny, which consists of a team of mother and daughter. Mother, Justine Me, daughter Lorianne, sometimes known as Sunnyshine. And we are going
Only by mother.
And we're going to talk about something we had a disagreement regarding last time, because I think I have my proof in the pudding. So, I don't know
Good
who
luck
that
with
term
that.
came from.
You know how it's a cooking term, and when you use certain ingredients, it proofs the item that you're making. Sometimes it's yeast.
I guess it's kind of when you say a certain liquor is such and such a proof.
It's nothing like that, but
Oh,
thanks
okay.
for playing. When you're talking about liquor, you're talking about how much alcohol content. Now, I don't know why they call it proof on that, but you can have like 40 proof, 80 proof, 100 proof. I will never be giving you 100 proof, just FYI.
Okay. I see Johnny Depp has come out with a new liquor. I was going to look up the price, but you were ready to do this. So when you're ready, I'm ready. I'll look it up again.
I know you love Johnny Depp,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't really care about what kind of liquor he makes.
Well, you know.
Okay, I wonder if he's from Harlan County. You know he's from
No,
Kentucky.
I looked it up. No, he's not from Harlan County.
Well, that's why he got out alive then.
Yeah. Yeah. So last time you had said that everything you know you learn from stories. Am I paraphrasing that well enough?
Not particularly. I have learned a lot from things like schooling and you.
Oh, okay. So I misunderstood that.
I
'cause-
guess you did. I have taken a lot of life lessons from stories. I find stories educational and useful in making decisions, whether you learn something, which is very rare, in which you go, oh, I will now change my life based on this story to do what they're doing. Usually it's the exact opposite. I have now learned, don't do this.
Okay.
That's the main thing I learned from
Okay.
stories.
Because what I was going to throw out there was that if you learned everything, then I must be a story.
Okay, so there's no proof in your pudding. No, when we were talking about the stories, I remember you reading Bible stories to me.
Yeah.
That was my first memory. And those are stories that I learned a lot of things about what to do, because the children's Bible is way less graphic than the actual Bible. So I didn't get
That it
all of the
is.
violence and
Yeah.
stuff. It was mostly like little morality tales, I guess you'd say. But the way you read it, I could see the pictures in my head. And that was so amazing to me. And that has never changed when I read myself. I see
Okay.
pictures in my head. It's why I
Okay.
sit around a lot of times, because I am neurotic, and I think about, who would I cast in this role if I'm reading a book? Because I also love film and television, and I love actors. And so I often think, what actor do I know would fit into this? Not because I have any control over it, just because it's fun, because then I can have a specific picture in my head. If I was producing film and television, sure, I'd love to work with some of the stars, but mostly I like to give young people opportunities, or old people, depending on what the role calls for. And I feel like you can tell a story in this day and age on a streaming service without having it to be led by a star.
I agree. We've watched some pretty good ones.
Well, the
And
Brits
they
have been
became-
doing this forever. You know,
Yeah, I know.
We're like, who's that? I think I recognize them. And then you look them up and you're like, I have no idea who this person is. They just look familiar. It's very rare, because once I've watched certain British people over and over, I remember them instantly, like Rosamund Pike, for example.
She's a good one.
She is.
And can play both sides.
Very well.
She can be a baddie.
Well, you know, over in Britain, they do this crazy thing where people decide to go to school and learn how to act. They don't just fly off to Hollywood and wing it.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
And apparently they're trained really well.
Apparently. So I wanted to say, when you use the term literature, what does that mean to you?
To me, it means, okay, the way they generally defined it in my education is you have literature and then you have genre fiction. And genre fiction usually falls into a specific category, like science fiction, horror,
Soaps.
young adults. No, not soaps. Soaps are on television. You're going Bear Grilled Skinny
Well,
on
no,
me.
sometimes they call Sharon Lee's books space soaps.
No, they call her books space opera.
Are you sure?
I am positive. You will have to show evidence of
Okay.
anything otherwise.
Okay, I don't have the evidence here in front of me today, but again, I'll get it. I'll come back to it.
I think if you
Okay.
were going to call something a soap, I haven't seen soaps in books. It's not the same as a soap opera. One of the things that makes a soap opera stand out. Oh, and for those of you young people who might be listening, if you don't find us boring, soap opera was defined by the fact that when they first started doing these television shows, it was to advertise soap.
Oh,
Which
I
is-
remember that now that you
And that's
said.
how I know it's not any of her books. So
Okay,
I
okay.
brought my receipts.
Okay. Well, according to when you look up what literature means, it's written works, especially those considered of superior or artistic merit.
Exactly. And that
a great
is
work of literature. But
that
when
is-
you dig down, it calls all writing literature.
but that's the big debate. Who
Okay.
is worthy of being called literature?
Yeah.
And who gets to be called genre fiction? So, for example, Pride and Prejudice. I see it as literature. It is wonderful. And quite frankly, a lot of genre fiction I consider literature. I will never forget, I was in a class when I was majoring in English literature. We were getting ready to read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And we were in a small group, like you'd go into the big auditorium to listen to the lecturer, and then you'd get broken off into different groups where teacher's aide, a graduate student usually, would assign you things and get down to the nitty-gritty so you could discuss things. And this guy was talking about Frankenstein and asked us what we thought about it. And I raised my hand and said, I think Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was the introduction to science fiction. And he goes, oh no, that's a genre. She's literature. And I just sat back. I was like, okay. He's wrong, by the way. I'm right. I'm
I agree.
100% right.
Yeah.
Her and H.G. Wells launched science
Yeah.
fiction.
But here's the thing. I didn't even, when they told me I had to take, art appreciation and literature was part of that, I didn't grasp anything. I'm just like, okay, I've got to take this class to get the degree, blah, blah, blah. I can remember in high school that Julius Caesar by Shakespeare was considered literature, and I didn't realize then that that wasn't necessarily recorded history.
Well,
So,
the irony is when Shakespeare was writing, he was very popular. Kind of like some people even consider him like the Spielberg of his time.
oh,
But then he fell out of favor for like 100 years. Then he came back into favor, and that's when it became literature. So these words are interchangeable, and I base what you should be studying in school on if it elevates your knowledge and your ability to think. Reading a historical romance novel does not belong in school. But, for example,
well,
there
let me
have been...
stop you right there, because I always thought of Pride and Prejudice as a romance novel.
Okay, that's fine, but let me be more specific. The romance novels that I was reading when I was 14, I didn't come away with historical knowledge.
Oh, okay.
I came away with sexual knowledge.
Okay.
That's what they used to call historical romance. Jane Austen is called literature. I know it's hard to keep track.
Yes, it is.
And now they just throw up new genres all the time. Young adult fiction. Or, I don't know what they're calling the genre that Jennifer Armentrout and Sarah J. Maas are writing, where they write these epic long novels, and it's total fantasy. Oh, I think they just call it fantasy.
Oh, yeah. And I do love me some good fantasy.
I do too.
I think
Good fantasy
there's
being
something
the
where
key
you have
word
to
there.
give some thought to characters. Characters built. There is no such thing to me as somebody who's totally bad or totally good. So those kind of stories can go by the by for me. I like digging down into, is there a grain of something good in you?
That was the beautiful thing about Pride and Prejudice, because if you have not read or watched Pride and Prejudice, prepare to be spoiled. But I think it'll be good spoilers. I'm not going to give away the plot.
It's kind of like reading a book that's good twice.
Or kind of like reading the summary on the back of the book.
Yeah.
And the way we were introduced to Pride and Prejudice, because I had not gone back to school yet, and we were both working at Disney, and Mom had a friend that, a work friend, that gave her this, we were way back on VHS, and told us to watch it, and that we would love Mr. Darcy by the end. So we sit down and we start watching it, I think, 8 p.m. We hated Mr. Darcy at the beginning. He was so prideful. Meanwhile, the female, Elizabeth Bennet, that's her name, was prejudiced because he was wealthy. And they just both did a dance, and that's literally what the book is about. However, we ended up binge watching until 4 a.m, and her friend was right. We fell in love with Mr. Darcy, and you will too.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to get the book after that. And I was so surprised. Very often I'm dissatisfied with the adaptation of books into film. I feel like this miniseries, I'm specifically talking about the 1995 miniseries starring Colin Firth, and I thought that was the best adaptation of a book I've ever seen.
Okay.
For example, Harry Potter's adaptation was terrible. And the reason I know this is because I only knew what was going on because I had read the books. I had to explain it all to my husband, who had no idea what was going on half the time because they just left out half the plot.
Well, I stumbled over the title Pride and Prejudice because I don't think pride is always a bad thing. It's like when I found the card that my mom said, "I'm proud of you." That just lifted me up. And so I looked up the word pride, and it can be both. You can have too much. But if you have some, it's okay. But, oh, by the way, just as an aside, pride is what the social circle of lions is. So,
Yes, just like crows are murder.
yeah, you have to have a certain number of crows for it
That's
to be a
fine.
murder.
But
But
still,
I think
how do
it's
they come up
12.
with these names?
I do not know. I'll bet you anything it goes back to our language and adapting from country to country.
Well, this is why people find English so complicated.
Yeah.
One of the things, I feel like Jane Austen named it Pride for a specific reason. There's a difference between I'm proud of you and hubris. And
What does that mean?
Hubris is the bad kind of pride.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
If-
well, the
if she
Bible
had-
said pride goeth before a fall. We only wish that was true.
well, it is true very often. I see it all the time in corporations when someone just thinks they know what they're doing, or in politics when someone thinks, well, I'm so-and-so, and so
Yeah.
I get to tell you how this is going to be.
Yeah.
And then other people go, well, here's why you're wrong, because they have facts. So hubris was what she was talking about. But hubris and prejudice does not have the same ring as pride and prejudice. And where she was going with that, not the kind of prejudice where, like you say, you hate black people or something. It's the kind of prejudice where you make a snap judgment when you meet someone and you think you have them all figured out 5 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a bad thing to do. And I learned a lot from that book.
I don't know if I learned anything. I very much enjoyed it. I have enjoyed
Apparently you don't
more.
learn anything when you read.
What I've since done is look at the history of the period. It took 13 years for it to be published. She was in her 20s when she wrote it. And what was happening when it was published, here's a thing that you have to think about the world around you as we look at war over in that country. Marie Antoinette was beheaded in the time that book was published. Also, England and Ireland created Great Britain. So...
Did they now?
Yes.
You mean England conquered Ireland and created Great Britain?
I don't know if it was conquering or
Oh,
agreement.
it was. That's why we
I
have
don't know.
North Ireland, which is not part of Great Britain.
Okay. And I think my roots are in, Scotch-Irish.
And the Scottish still
Irish.
talk about leaving the Union.
Yeah.
I mean, Sean Connery was a big fan of that.
Yeah.
I feel for people that want all the borders to remain the same and then go back to complaining
Yeah.
constantly and getting obsessed with it. I mean, we watched this show, this version of Robin Hood, and they changed it to where it was all about this fella, Robin Hood, who was a Saxon, and they had been conquered by... Who were they conquered by?
Normandy?
Yes, the Normans. And he and his family just couldn't let it go, and they took it in a different direction, and it was very interesting. And it was close enough in time where it was kind of fair that he was wanting to rebel because they just stole his house and killed his family. And, when it's right in the moment, you're going to want to get a little bit of vengeance.
Especially if you're young.
But if it's 100 years later or 200 years later, let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is some of the struggles we see now on the planet. People who don't know as much about a subject, and they don't know that they don't know, so they fight a war that was lost to start with. So,
or they feel like they're being oppressed in
Yeah.
current era, and we won't even get me started on the education system.
oh, thank you.
Because that's part of the reason people don't know these things. You kind of have to self-educate at this point.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to know how, when you decide to put your kid in public school, to know what they're going to learn, to be involved, to see if you agree or disagree, to do some homework yourself as a parent, which someday we'll talk about being parents.
We will. I have a friend that does homeschooling, and I thought originally that she was just homeschooling her kids, but it's a group of people that have gotten together to homeschool their kids, and these kids are on fire. One of them has already done a lot in university, and she just turned 18.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, because you can put a lot of knowledge into kids if you have small groups and you know how to focus.
Yeah.
And
then we had to come up with that thing, No Child Left Behind, which means, no, you need to be left behind, and this one will just benefit the population. We're getting political, I'm sorry.
you should be sorry. But there are problems with the public education system, and part of it is too many kids in a classroom with one teacher.
And when you think about it, so you went to public school. Well, this one went to private school. Got 3 kids in the family. 2 are in public school, 1's in private school. How does that work out as to who knows what to do what with their future?
I don't even know what you're talking about right now. Why would you stick 2 of them in public school and 1 of them in private school?
Because, 2 are foster children and the other one isn't.
Oh, I see what you're saying. All right, this didn't go exactly as planned.
We'll probably pick up on it
But
some
there's
more.
a reason why we're called Embracing the Random. If you've stuck with us this long, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you could figure out how to comment, that would be great.
Oh, yes, it would be.
You
Because
can
I'd like to know the opinions of people who
Me
listen
too.
to us.
And then we can respond to them. I know that you can comment on Facebook, and we do post these links there. You can also comment on YouTube, and we post the links there. You can comment on Spotify. You can't comment on Amazon Music. So if you're listening to it there, find us on Facebook, Spotify, or YouTube.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again.
Yeah, or hear from you.
Exactly. I use the word see as a metaphor.
Okay.
Have a great day. Talk to you soon.
And here's to the tears. In every moment together, we conquer our fears. With dreams in our hearts and the world in our sight. We're beer grill skinny, ready